Dental Fuel, the podcast that focuses on what no one else is talking about: mistakes. The dental world is full of before and afters, and no one is talking about the middle. Dental Fuel brings you the unspoken in between. Dental Fuel is brought to you by 90 Day Jumpstart, a program to help you increase production and break free from financial stress. Dental Fuel is back with Dr. Gabriela Flores, talking about a financial mistake. Dr. Flores reflects back on her professional journey and talks about the importance of financial literacy in dentistry. On the topic of finances, I would love to know, and it may just be this, but I would love to know a financial mistake that you've made in your career and how you have learned from that.
All right. A financial mistake that I've made in my career. Let me think. Hold on.
Yeah, it can be anything from, working at that DSO and maybe not knowing what you were going to
That is
expect.
that's good. I had an answer for that, but I like I like that prompt better.
Yeah.
Definitely is first biggest financial mistake is under I would say even going as far back as your loans is understanding how many loans you're taking
Mm,
on, really understanding how payable that is, what your future is going to be after dental school, because the reality is the way insurances are going, it's very hard to just do the bare minimum and make enough to pay back your loan. So that's definitely the first financial mistake I would say I made, was under, or I would say overestimating how much I would make straight out of dental school,
oh yeah.
because
Oh
the story is, oh, dentists are fine. I've never met a broke dentist. This, but we're talking
yeah.
about dentists that paid maybe $100,000 total for their dental school,
Right.
not
Yeah,
five
different
hundred thousand
times.
dollars. Yes,
Yes.
not 500,000 or more. So that's the first financial mistake I would say. The second would be not understanding what a draw was completely and letting the DSO just kind of tell you, no, you're going to be fine. This is our best location. You will not have that problem. Why did I believe it? Thank goodness I know how to sell, and I know how to produce, and I know how to work on my toes, because if not, I mean, that would have been a
Yeah.
disaster.
I
It
I don't
almost
know what that
was.
is. Can you tell me a little bit more about it's a draw? Is that right? A draw?
Yes, a draw is when they pay you a daily rate, but
Okay.
if you don't, so basically, and then it's kind of on a system where, let's say this theirs was tiered, so let's say it's 28% of collections. So if you're not making whatever, so it was $500 a day, right? If you're not making enough for your commission to be $500 a day, you end up owing that money back. So they pay you $500 a day, but at the end of the month, they'll take back the money that you didn't produce to
Wow.
meet that $500 a day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. That's a business model for you.
Yes. And it seems doable on a regular practice. Oh, yeah, $2,000 a day is doable to make good money. I think my minimum, I think it was, it ended up being like, for what my commission was, I think ended up being 1,800 a day minimum I had to make.
Okay.
But when you're making $20 on a class
Right.
two,
Yeah,
$50
it's
on a
hard
class
to get
two,
there.
that's hard. And
Yeah.
then
Oh my gosh.
we're not talking little boards class twos. We're talking about bombed out class twos,
Oh my
composite
goodness.
crowns.
Yeah, things
Yes.
that'll take you time, you know?
Yes.
Wow, that's definitely a different structure. Being in public health, I'm on a salary, so if we see one patient or if we see 100 patients, we get paid the same. So oftentimes, I hear a lot of these terms, and I don't really know what they mean, but I'm learning as I go, and it's just so interesting. It's just a different kind of structure. Interesting,
That's
interesting.
cool.
And I love that you talked about loans. One of the things that I often get asked by pre-dentals is, hey, I got accepted by XYZ school. You need these five schools. Where should I go? And oftentimes, I would argue that going where your loans would be the lowest and your cost of living would be the lowest almost is probably the best bet. You're probably going to get a great education wherever you go, but coming out with, $500,000 in loans is so hard to recover from.
More than 500,000.
Yeah, I mean,
And
yeah,
that's because I
there
didn't
are.
have undergrad.
Yes, exactly. So if you have
Yeah.
undergrad loans, if you went to some kind of Ivy League school or somewhere where you change majors a few times and you have loans from there, just to stack that on top of your dental education loans can be really, really difficult. Yeah, that's hard.
I think a good way to advise these pre-dental students would be, because in the end of the day, sometimes you have your dream school, and I see there's two sides of the coin. I have had a lot of situations where I was selected as the primary provider in a practice by a patient because of my education over someone else's education. I'm not saying that that's necessary. They're all amazing, but sometimes if you go to a university that resonates with the person a little bit more, especially if you went, especially in the Northeast. I would say if you're dealing with Northeastern patients, they're gonna choose you based on your university. It's funny because in South
Oh,
Florida,
that's
the patients that
funny.
are from here, they don't care as much, but the patients that are snowbirds, they do actually pay attention and people do comment. And also, it just depends what you want to do if you want to specialize. So I think if you're going to specialize or own a practice, it's not as bad because specialty, you will be making more. Owning a practice, you will have equity. So in the end of the day, you sell that and you can pay off all your debt, right? So I think it just really depends on what course you're taking. And I think what's lacking in dentistry are mentors to teach you these things, because most of the people that are advising these students are people who have interest in their decision, whether it's a
Yes,
DSO or
of
a
course.
dental practice broker. But it just really depends what's best for you. Sometimes the only school you got into was the most expensive one. And if this is really your passion and you're okay, like if you do well under pressure and that financial burden won't weigh you down, then sure, you can do it. But I do agree with you. In retrospect, I think that if I knew more, I would have considered maybe doing something like my associate did, where she actually on her second year she applied for in-state and then got even lower tuition.
Yes, very smart.
Where
Very smart.
there are people who the reality is their parents pay for their dental
Yeah,
school. If
no, it's
your parents are
true.
paying for
Yeah.
your dental school, then go for it.
Go
Go get
wherever.
your school. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely did not have that luxury. Um,
Same.
how did you get so business savvy? I feel like you've got the business under lock here a little bit.
I've always inclined towards business. I've always worked in sales one way or another. And then I married someone with an MBA.
Ah, very good.
So, and he's very entrepreneurial, and that inspired me even more. And I love the business aspect of it. So I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. I always was pretty good at sales, and I always loved interacting with people. I always wanted to be a business owner, but then marrying someone who has the business bug just made it even more. So I read a lot of books on business, and that's something else that if you really want to perform above and beyond in dentistry these days, you have to take a couple of classes or read a couple of books. I didn't take any business classes. I just read books. Pretty
Ooh, drop
much.
a book for our listeners. Tell me
Oof.
one that you think is a good one for our
Really,
listeners to listen
really,
to.
really basic that will help you in
Yeah.
dental clinic, is an old school book. And I feel like a broken record. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. People management. It's not even, if you can manage people, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game in dentistry, because that's 90% of it. Because I know amazing clinicians that they just don't know how to deal with people. I've met doctors that are not even the best clinicians, but they were great people persons and they were so successful. That's a pattern. I
Yeah.
observed these things, and that's something I saw. So books like that. If you really want to get a really, really salesy book, there's one called It's $100 Million Deals by Alex Hormozy. That's a great one too.
We will include those names in the show notes for sure for people to check it out.
That's a great one on if you want to get like real salesy, but it's kind of hard to apply in dentistry. You have to really take that one with a grain of salt. But I would recommend books that are on people. Yeah, people, dealing with people would be the best.
Very cool. Very cool. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Dental Fuel. We're back next week with Dr. Flores and another mistake. Trying to reach your goals faster? Check out 90-Day Jumpstart on ignitedds.com. Be sure to check us out on Instagram @Dental Fuel and @IgniteDDS.